Welcome back everyone. Last episode you would have seen me catching some garfish using a float setup, and in this episode I wanted to run through that setup in more detail and show everyone how I rig up my line. So basically I'm using a quill float, nothing too fancy, just a very basic small quill float. You can use a pencil float, any float that's not very buoyant. And I set that up on a running line so it's very easy to adjust your depth. Straight onto a swivel. Now I'm using 6 pound line, but you can get away with 4 pound line. I wouldn't use anything thicker than a 6 pound line. And then onto a small split shot, just enough to get the just the tip of the float showing. From there I run a small dropper onto a size 10 long shank hook. So a very small hook. And then another maybe half a meter onto another hook. The last couple of times I've gone out, I've caught probably 90% of my fish on the top dropper. Garfish are a surface fish, so you will catch most of them on there, but if you're targeting mullet, you can adjust your depth. You can go down as deep as a meter and still get them. So it depends on your area and what the fish are doing at the time. So that's basically it. Float, swivel, split shot. I use a dropper and then another hook down at the bottom. Pretty straightforward. Now the bait that I was using, I've been using this bait for a while now, it's just dough. So I mix up my own dough, and all I use is just flour and water, and I like to use a little bit of tuna oil, or in this case I've been using pilchard streak oil, anything to give it a little bit of flavouring. And you don't need a lot of bait at all. So with your dough, you only want a little bit, probably the size of a pea, and you're just covering the gape of the hook. You don't have to cover the shank, just the gape of the hook, and just form it around nice and tight so it doesn't come off. And that's basically it. So you'll do that on both your hooks, and once you get a bite you'll either hook it or the bait's gone. So dough is very cheap, so you can make lots of it, and you know, a cup of flour basically is enough for a whole fishing session. To attract the fish, I like to use a burley. So with garfish I wouldn't fish for them without some sort of burley. So I generally just use breadcrumbs, sand, and again lots of this tuna oil or pilchard oil. Basically, if I use say half a kilo of breadcrumbs, or I probably wouldn't use that much, probably say use half a bucket of breadcrumbs, I'd fill the rest of the bucket up with sand. So 50-50 breadcrumbs and sand, and then a couple of splashes of this stuff. And that's it. Mix it well. Don't use too much burley, just a small handful every time you're casting out. Once you've got them in the area, you can sort of just slow down the burley amount, just to keep them in the vicinity. You don't want to overfeed them. You want them eating your bait. So hopefully that helps. If you have any questions or if I missed something, please feel free to leave a comment. But yeah, hopefully this was helpful for someone. Thank you very much.